This is like the VIP seat.
Welcome back to Runner's Garden. This is the second part, characters that are pronounced B, fourth tone. We almost have a dozen of them. Let's get to it.
If you're gonna learn just 2 characters today, I recommend these 2, both with 11 strokes for traditional and 6 strokes for simplified. The first one is 毕业的毕. 毕业 is to graduate. 毕 means to complete. It's also a surname. One that my wife likes to say is 报告完毕. That means she's finished talking or finished giving her report. How can we remember that this character means to be complete? Well, the top of it is the field radical. And so after you work in a field, you take your field tools and maybe you go back to your shed or your garage and you put them up on your shelves. Under the tin, we have our shelf line. And then there's maybe 2 brackets holding up the shelf. And another shelf. One's a little bit longer. And a third shelf beneath that. Hang your hoe or your shovel, whatever it is you use in the field, on those shelves. You have finished or completed your work in the field. A simplified character is 比较的比, 比 as in to compare. And that was in my last video, compare, 比, and then 10, 10 beneath it, like a plus sign. Maybe you can remember this by all the years you need to complete in order to graduate. So you need at least a decade of education, comparing yourself to others. I mean, that's what we do in school, usually. That's the simplified. The next one, also 4th tone B, is to close. Hopefully you've learned the mun or the gate door radical. That looks like this.
Gotta love this gate.
And then inside, we can pretend there is a person walking up to those gates and outstretching their arms to close the gates, sometimes to obstruct. And the most common one is 闭嘴, shut up. 闭着眼睛, 密闭, airtight.
It's kind of a dreary day, but I love it. The heat was here yesterday. Yesterday was the first day I wore shorts to work in a long time. Today, though, it was rainy and trainy. Hold on. A bonus on these slightly breezy, windy days is the air quality is better. Liking that. And the rain has stopped. Liking that even more. Met up with JC. We did a little walk. Discovered 2 nondescript coffee shops.
That's intriguing. What the? It's like a ladder there. Interesting. There's a little coffee shop here. With the tiniest, with beer.
That was super cool.
Let's knock out a few more characters. We need to talk about this component and that component. If we can knock out these, I think we got about 10 of the characters that we're going to talk about today. These are both pronounced B, but they are used in a more literary sense. The first one, B, means myself, but it's a very formal, polite way to say myself or me. If I met like the president of Taiwan, I would say 我必姓罗, as opposed to just 我姓罗. That's my surname is Luo, but I'm speaking to somebody way above my rank. Our whiteboards are really messy. Sorry. It also means poor or shabby. For the left component, maybe you can think of bees, like the insect bees, flying out of a honeycomb or a beehive if that hive was kind of, I don't know, jabbed with a stick. Bees are flying out in these directions.
At least it'll give you kind of a reminder of the sound. It's not an independent character. At least it doesn't even have a listing in a dictionary. The right side is the pu radical, which means to rap or tap lightly. So if you tap on the beehive, the bees will fly out. Try that. Now we're gonna use this as kind of a component and we're gonna add some radicals. If you add the jing radical, means cloth, to the bottom. Back in the day, you could trade cloth as money. Bi, for example, is coin money or hard currency, and zhibi is paper money. Renminbi is what they use in China for their currency. Taibi is the currency they use in Taiwan. It's the new Taiwan dollar. Speaking of dollars, these two probably cost a few. And here's the quirky ship house in Changhua, Taiwan. Interested in building projects in my city. It's just fun. So are cars. So we have our phonetic component on top, and then if we add Gong, which is a radical that means enjoined hands, to the bottom, we get also B. But this one is used in, and I see this a lot as a teacher, 作弊, which means to cheat. Cheating often happens in concert with others. So the hands joining, two kids like looking on each other's paper. Or a person's two hands holding a cheat sheet under the table. This B can mean to abuse, fraud or harm, disadvantage. If you put the grass radical on the top, that means to conceal or to cover, which makes sense if something is hidden in the high grass. Think of those bees again. The whole beehive is in the grass. If you put the death radical below this compound, you get, again, B, which means to come to a bad end. In other words, to die. As in English, to kill or die can be used in an abstract sense. See the description. That's the one component out of the way. Let's do the other. First, let's take a look at a row of Japanese colonial era homes in Changhua. But somebody's living there?
Yes.
Wow.
We'll walk around, I'll show you.
All right. There's like an old wicker chair in there. In this one.
Polished or historical
heritage
sites, right?
Yeah, this one, you cannot save that. Look at the crossbeam there. Certainly interesting, though. Wow. Thank you. There's another structure here.
Yeah, there are a couple more houses.
Can you stick your arm up and just film in there?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, this one is occupied. Yeah. I've seen a lot of these around town, but I haven't seen them like clustered, so many.
Right, together.
Yeah. Pardon for inconvenience.
Yeah.
You pick the best one and...
Mix it up, right?
Yeah. Probably owned by the government now.
I guess so.
I don't know. This B can also be pronounced P. It's not on our most common 3,000 characters list, but we need to know it as a component. The character as a whole means to open up or break ground. That's as a verb. As a noun, it means a monarch, like a king. Fu bi means to bring the monarchy back. The left side of this character or component cannot really stand alone, just like with that last one. But the right side means bitter or toilsome, laborious. I tend to see that as bamboo scaffolding. Here in Taiwan, they still use bamboo scaffolding in some places. Building a scaffolding would be toilsome. If our B component is enveloped by the 错 radical, the walking radical, we get this. It's most often used with 避免, which means to avoid. Adding the 图 radical beneath all that, again, it's B. We have 强 B.
So if you think of the monarch, if he has walls, it would be a castle. It wouldn't be earthen, right? So the monarch's mounds would be like real walls with brick and stone. But if you just forget about the monarch part for a second, the upper left, they look like bricks or stones. And then my scaffolding analogy, somebody has to stand on a scaffold to build those high walls on an earthen base, which means it's a wall. I'm on my massage chair. Changbi is wall. Gebi, next to, on either side of a structure. Gebi Lingju is your next door neighbor. I'm often bothering them with my guitar. The coolest walls around here are usually the temples. They're all over the place in Taiwan. So let's take a short break and check out the temple that I've been around for almost the entire time I've been here.
This is the back of NanYao Gong Temple. Not much to look at, but their office is that one. There's an air conditioning unit on each yangtai balcony. So I'm thinking that this is used as kind of a dormitory.
Pause this and see how many characters you can read from previous videos. This is the view from the portico looking straight up. The main hall was completed in 1738. It's under construction right now at the time of this filming, but we can check out this great model.
My wife always says churches and temples, they make the money.
I walked by that building 100 times.
Never realized that it had an association to NanYao Temple. We've lived across from the back of NanYao Temple, and we were right on the level of when they used to have fireworks. The fireworks would explode at about the 12th floor, which is where we were located. Years after the 9/21 earthquake, we got into a townhouse, which we love. We still go back to NanYao Temple because the back of it is on the road where my wife's parents have been living. In fact, the back of the temple, their addition was partially funded by my father-in-law. He said it was like ㄅㄧ4th, like $300, but he got his name on a pillar. Every time we travel, we will always go there to worship. It's the tradition of Taiwanese people to go to a temple and pray before you travel. Also, when we buy new cars. In my previous video, I showed a little section of the Mazu pilgrimage. This was my 4th year to walk with the pilgrims. Mazu pilgrimage takes a stop at NanYao Gong Temple.
Back to our characters. Let's look at the component B again, and if we swap the tu out for rou, the rou radical, it is arm. In the simplified characters, instead of the rou radical, you have yue. Anytime when you see the rou radical in traditional, it's written as the yue, or month or moon radical in simplified. Bi bang is your arm. And we learned this bang already in a previous video. Check it out. A more colloquial way to say arm is shou bi. If you put yu underneath that whole component, again, bi, it's a round piece of jade with a hole in the middle. And I'm wearing a green shirt. Speaking of jade, we have another bi, which could be green jade or jasper, this character. When coupled with what it's describing as an adjective, it can take on the meaning of greenish blue or bluish green. It has a Wang, which is a king, and a bai is white, and then stone, which makes a lot of sense. The stone radical underneath it. Bi lu is dark green. Oh, that's Pipa. I just bought some from the fruit store.
Coffee shop is that little tiny black sign right there.
So this is the inside of the place that I saw the other day. JC had to go. He's meeting up with
another guy we know, to talk about his New Zealand trip. But I'm gonna sit and enjoy a nice cup of coffee. There's a cool guy here talked about the different coffees. These are the beans. I can hear he's grinding right now. You're so nondescript. Like, we're in an alley here. This is what I like about Taiwan. You can go down an alley and find something like this. Look at that little sign. It's just like that other coffee shop that I showed you a couple minutes ago. Really innovative seating. So we got the bench. The table can be moved around with this handle. Got a one-person seat here. This is like the VIP seat. 4 persons. I went for the iced coffee. That's nice after a long walk.
Thanks for watching. Runner's Garden signing off.